Okay. It's 1:01 p.m. We're on the calendar from 1 to 2 p.m. today. We're here to discuss AO 2025-70, which is an ordinance, the Anchorage Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 1655, Anchorage Child Care Licensing Code to reduce burdens on licensed child care providers by repealing Section 16.55.060, 16.55.115, and 16.55.180, and amending Section 16.55.170 and 16.55.250. We'll start with introductions. Mr. Johnson.
Zach Johnson. Jared Gerker.
Scott Myers.
Keith McCormick.
Aaron Baldwin Day.
Anna Brawley.
Christopher Constant. Any members on the phone? Seeing, hearing none, then we'll proceed to welcome our presenters.
Kimberly Rash, Director for the Anchorage Health Department.
Darcy Montalvo, Human Services Division Manager for the Anchorage Health Department.
Dawn Skeet, Child Care Licensing Supervisor for the Anchorage Health Department.
We also have Mr. Hurt, Assembly Legal, and it says it was drafted by the Department of Law. I'm kind of surprised there's not one of them here, but that's okay. I think Director Rash probably has what she needs. Go ahead.
Yes. Also, Department of Law should be on the phone, but if not.
Other than Mr. Gates on the phone, is there anyone else other than the interpreters? No. Okay. So
Okay.
for now, no.
All right.
You have the floor.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about the changes that we have proposed to AMC 16.55. I have a presentation. This document, or this AO and AR, will be coming back to the body on the 15th of July. There's.
Is somebody unmuted on the phone? Oh, we're muted. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Excuse me. So you will be seeing this document come back to you for a vote on the 15th of July. In today's agenda, we're going to go over the timeline of AMC 16.55, the community feedback and the ways that we receive feedback. Our survey results, we had sent out a survey in 2024, how the health department is trying to reduce barriers to child care. So we did so in March and it closed in April of 2024. And this was an intent to identify those barriers to child care as more homes and centers continue to close. As of August of 2024, the Anchorage School District changes the school schedule, which created an additional impact to parents' schedules and childcare staffing needs here within the municipality. In March of 25, our child care licensing team met with the ACE board to provide the preliminary briefing describing some of the recommendations for change. And then in their June 1st meeting, we presented with them again the final changes that we have that you see in front of you in the AO. And they did vote on it with resounding positivity and approval of the recommended changes that we had. Additional history, so you can see on this chart the overall decrease of licensed homes and centers from February 2020 to 2025. Again, during COVID, when most businesses closed, either temporarily or long-term, childcare facilities made great efforts to remain open. In Anchorage, there was health and safety measures required that were frequently updated, and each new measure required more time, effort, cost, and staffing, and made for fewer children that could attend at the time. Facilities were stretched thin with staffing and with financial worries. Through COVID and following that, many facilities either closed temporarily or just never reopened. In addition, Thread has noted an overall decline of available licensed childcare throughout the state and is currently seen to be at 25% fewer than pre-COVID, which is that rate that you see at the bottom there.
Real quick, Mr. Rash, first I know for the record at 1:04, Ms. Silvers joined us. Ms. Brawley has a question.
Yeah, thanks. And this is maybe more a follow-up than digging into it today. I just want to be cautious, or at least say childcare has been very expensive and difficult to operate for many years in this city. And so I want to make sure that we're not, and I know this is, I'm guessing this isn't your intent, that we're not characterizing this as COVID broke the system. Because I understand the reason to show that, but I think also then it gets us into a side conversation about, when millions of people died, what do you do as a public health intervention? So I just want to I want to put that on the record, but I would be interested kind of in a longer, if you guys have data on the number of licensed facilities and especially kind of how many open versus how many closed, maybe over the last 10 years back to 2015. Again, not to derail the conversation here, but I think it's just really important because I remember at least 10 years ago, my coworkers saying, I'm on a 6-month waiting list for my infant, right? I mean, so this is not a new problem and it is very much not caused by COVID. And so I just want to really state that, but I would be interested in what that data is. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ash.
Yes, and that is correct. This has been a historical problem across many cities throughout the United States. It's not just tied to COVID. However, we just wanted to, we only did a look back to the last 5 years, but we can definitely go back farther. And so again, it just shows the decline in licensed homes and centers that we are currently operating within the municipality at. So as a way to continue to receive our feedback and understand what the issue was, we receive feedback, regular feedback from 3 main areas. And those 3 main areas are from parents, administrators, and childcare workers. Parents, they provide copious amounts of feedback on the shortage of facilities and lack of space. We get those through phone calls, annual written evaluations sent to us with each licensed facility. We receive complaints of that's just difficult and what those barriers are. And those are a part of the changes that we are making here and going over today. We receive community feedback from administrators through our day-to-day operations, phone calls, on-site inspections, and then additionally through that survey that we provided in March of 2024. Again, more feedback coming in from childcare workers. So we have on-site conversations with staff members within facilities, and we receive that feedback from staff also via phone calls. Within the past 2 years, the governor's task force had convened and they had produced 2 documents. Document 1 is actually really what pertains to childcare licensing, and then the barriers that we're seeing are documented within that task force documentation. So we use that as another way to inform the decisions that we are making today. The survey that was sent out in March of 2024 had 8 questions total. We sent those out to administrators within facilities and homes. And then we started with questions that our AHD leadership here in our childcare licensing team knew were issues which were pertaining to school age ratios, online training for homes, the number of children in the first year of licensing for a home, and children's physicals. Childcare licensing team tried to make the questions really applied to those areas to see what that feedback would be. Out of the 8 questions here today in this proposal in the AO, we are trying to address 4 of those, of which 3 of them still need coming back to the body with a second round of code revisions. So questions 1 and 2 relate to school age ratios. Question 6, which talks about increasing from 6 children to 8 in the provisional first year of a home. And then question number 7, which is planning to care for school agers in 2024 and 2025 school year. And those are the ones that we are addressing in this current AO. In the future round of code revisions, we will be looking at questions 3, 4, and 5, which pertain to online training requirements for homes and children's physicals in centers. And so the next couple of slides just talk about and give you those results. They are sort of small, so my apologies, but we try to kind of condense it as much as we
Before
could.
you move on, it appears there's a question from Ms. Baldwin.
Yeah, would you just relist which of these questions are addressed in the current AO and which will be addressed in a future iteration?
Yes. So current questions that are addressed in the current AO is 1, 2, 6, and 7. Next round would be 3, 4, and 5. Question number 8 was just an open-ended question, and I can get to that in a second. Yep. Okay. All right. So again, these are just the questions, the answers that we received. And for number 8, we didn't put in all of the written text here, but this was the number 1 request that we did receive from question 8. The question is, if not already addressed above, what are your top 3 items you would like to see changed or added to AMC 16.55? And the number 1 request was to change the 1 to 30 requirement for staff to children present for a child care associate, which is a CCA. A CCA has to meet the same requirements as an administrator and be in a ratio throughout the center at a 1:30 for the number of children present. This requirement has been a huge hurdle and a catalyst for approximately 30% of all of our variances that our child care licensing team undergoes. And just to notate, one variance does take substantial amount of time for one staff member. And so when you're looking about 30% of these variances, that is a lot of staff time to complete those. This was a state of Alaska requirement. However, the state office listened to the feedback from the governor's task force, and this requirement was changed in October 9th of 2024. It is now called an associate administrator, and only one has to be designated per center. And so that number one concern we heard was addressed through our state partners. Other questions asked or other items addressed in number 8 is, can we change the toddler capacity in a home for no more than 3 under 30 months, so that no more than 3 under 18 months. This is a state requirement. And one of the things I probably should have mentioned early on is that we are state funded. This program is 100% state funded through grants. And so often we are following all of the state's requirements, as why we adopted those in 2016. The municipality can be more restrictive. However, we can't be less restrictive than the state.
1 second. Ms. Rash, go ahead, Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious, I think I generally understand why the ratios are important, and I know it's a big part of this discussion. Can you unpack a little bit more about why staff ratios, like kind of what the decision is and why they would be different for younger kids versus older kids? I know that's been a big kind of theme in the discussion.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to sort of explain it, ratio status is if you are caring for multiple children that are unable to exit a facility if there is a fire, how is one person going to be able to carry out multiple amounts of infants or those that cannot walk outside the facility safely? And so really staffing ratios really depend on the health and safety of not only inside the facility, but also if there was an emergency at the facility and making sure that everyone can exit that facility. All right. Reducing barriers. So how is the health department trying to reduce these barriers? First is really the decision to this piece of code. We have developed a web-based forms barrier in the past, and the state in addition to a new database that will eventually reduce barriers. We say eventually was just deployed probably about 6 to 6 ago, October 1st. And so we're still working through the iterations of making sure that it works at the municipality level and making sure that everyone is trained on how to complete the documents that are contained within those, which is the actual inspections. So we are working through that process currently. All right, so what changes are we making in this AO? So there are a few, and these are them high level, and then I'll go through each one of them. We are trying to remove fees. So those are annual fees, change fees, plan review fees, and this aligns with our state of Alaska partners. Removing the requirements for liability insurance. This aligns with the state of Alaska. We are trying to increase capacity from 6 to 8 during the provisional, which is the first year of a licensed home. This aligns with our state of Alaska partners. We're increasing ratios for school-age childcare or school-age care, and adopting the state school-age ratios. We're removing the minimum age of 6 weeks for enrollment in a center. Again, this aligns with the state. We're removing the requirement to have a minimum of 2 caregivers present at all times. We're removing specific bathroom requirements that can be cost prohibitive and amending language and requirements for playground inspections. One of the biggest catalysts of making these changes and the ones that we chose here today is that they all have a financial impact and that burdensome to the administrators and the homes and the facilities. And so those were the ones that we chose. Now the second round would be less cost prohibitive, but still are needed. So those are kind of the driving factors that we had here. So the first one is removing fees. So the annual fees, change fees, and plan review fees. Annual fees range from $50 for a home to $125 to $375 for centers, depending on the license capacity. Fees for plan review and changes range from $15 to $130, depending upon the capacity. And so this section of code, it really benefits the administrators, and it removes the financial requirement of annual renewal fees and fees assessed per change. This actually ties back to the summary of economic impacts that you see with the AO, and that the health department will be losing around $37,000 annually in revenue.
Quick question, Mr. Ash from Ms. Silvers.
Yeah. I have questions on removing the requirement for liability insurance. And I think on the surface, that sounds like, that would save providers money. But when you look deeper into that, I fear that that's good until somebody actually needs that insurance. And then, maybe they go bankrupt or their center has to close because they don't have that protection.
Yeah, I can actually, we can go to that one. Hold on one second. All right. And so really looking at this liability insurance, we kind of tried to do some fact finding as to why it was in code. And from what we could tell, it's not a municipal requirement, nor is it a state requirement. But to your point, yes, that could happen. This really allows the ownership onto that entity and that organization to make that determination if they need that liability insurance or not. But I think it is something that we can look into and see. And Dawn may have some more information as to what she has heard from administrators on this specific topic, if you could.
The idea behind this one really was to let this become a business decision. I don't know how many may choose to let go of it. I have, centers have a significant amount of liability, but homes do too. And we have had incidences where they've had to use it. Children have been hurt. But the idea was to let them make that decision. The state does not require liability insurance and never has. And we have heard it ranges in expense. Some of it is, some policies seem to be very expensive. And then we've also gotten feedback that it is becoming increasingly more difficult to find coverage. For homes, this is not just a rider that you can get on your homeowners. It's insurance that has to be taken out specifically for childcare. And off the top of my head, I know of one company that does it, and it's out of Minneapolis. And so we don't endorse any one company, but we end up kind of steering people there because they have to have insurance right now. It's an expense before they can get licensed. And right at this time, it's the only one I'm aware of that does it. I do think that it's a little bit easier for centers. They get commercial insurance and we see it from all over, but homes struggle to find this.
I guess for a follow-up question, if a home decides not to get that insurance and a child is injured and has extensive medical bills, how does that end up being covered? Who pays for that? Will somebody cover it for that child that's injured?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that would then be really that conversation between the home administrator and that family, because the municipality would not have any authority within that realm there. But I think it is something to notate, because obviously one of the basis of why we exist is for the health and safety of children within our community.
Yeah.
I would also like to add some of the feedback that we had heard in terms of being able to find anybody to cover. As I was looking for best practices, what we're seeing is that in the lower 48, people are dropping the requirement for kind of the same reason. It's harder and harder for them to find insurance companies willing to do this. Also, from the provider side, they were becoming concerned because one incident would then shut them down essentially, or jack their rates up so high they couldn't afford to continue to open. So kind of just following in line with best practices.
So I have a question on that topic then, and I'm regretful we don't have a 7th floor attorney here. And generally speaking, I would guess the answer is no, but since we have required and we are removing the requirement, then, in lawsuits, when they occur, they tend to go for the deep pockets. No single family home is going to be the deep pockets. We're going to be the deep pockets. The question is, do we anticipate any liability accruing to us? Do we find if no liability exists, then we find ourselves in that awkward position of drafting and providing settlements for people because we just don't want to litigate? It's too expensive. What's the actual risk structure here? Because it certainly sounds like a risky mess to me. Matthew? I know it's.
Yeah,
hard to answer.
I would have to defer to somebody from the seventh floor, but I don't think as the licensing authority, proving some action or failure to act under such a fact pattern, proving our liability as the licensing authority, seems like a really tenuous case. But again, I would have to defer to the seventh floor that defends those kind of actions on the regular.
All right. Yarrow?
So to follow up, so you said that people are removing the requirements from places in the states, and that's kind of becoming the new best practice. I guess my question is, in those places that are removing it, have we seen any of examples of a child being injured and what happens from there? Who goes bankrupt? You know, who has to cover that? Does that child get medical care? And so I think that we really have to consider that because ultimately, I think that, you know, our job is to make sure that the children in these care centers are safe.
Yeah, and we can get with the seventh floor legal and we can get back to you all.
Thank you.
So Jessica from the Department of Law is on the phone. She tried unmuting while I was bumbling through my answers.
Sure. Jessica, if you are available, great. I just got a note from Eva that you are the one. So if you're there, we would love to hear from you. Hello.
I mean, sure. I can really affirm what John already said in terms of this is a business decision for providers and facilities, one that the state has never required and that we've gone above and beyond in requiring it as a policy decision. And I would point to, with regards to the municipality's liability on licensing issues, Alaska Statute 965070, which provides some protection against any liability for damages based on issuance of a license. So not in matters of risk, there's always risk, and I can't make any promises about how people will pursue claims. But that the requirement of the municipality for insurance was a policy decision and not based on a state requirement, right? The municipality licenses childcare centers within the municipality, the state licenses childcare centers outside of the municipality, and childcare centers outside of the municipality are not legally required to have insurance. That is a decision that the facilities make themselves.
Thanks. So did you have a follow-up? No. Ms. Silvers. I'm sorry, Ms. Baldwin Day.
Just wanted to share anecdotally, I've done quite a bit of work recently in the childcare space, and I think there's two realities we need to be aware of. One is children get hurt, and they get hurt whether they're at a licensed childcare facility or in their front yard, and that's just sort of the reality of childhood. And I think that there are risk mitigation factors that are already in place for any licensed childcare facility that don't have anything to do with the insurance side of things, but have to do with risk management. And concurrent with that, there's also very frequently a pretty extensive waiver outlining, what parents are going to take responsibility for, what sorts of injuries might fall outside of what is considered normal for a toddler who's running around falling over. And I think we need to take that into account as well. Is insurance is only one piece of the risk and liability equation, and to require insurance is very different than recommending insurance. I also think we need to keep in mind that the availability of care is a critical piece of this equation. And this is a significant barrier for many home-based providers because it is so incredibly difficult to find an insurance company that will cover home-based childcare. And this cuts across, this isn't just an Alaska issue, this really is a nationwide issue. And so by requiring insurance, we are creating a de facto cap on how many home-based providers we can actually have in our city. And when I say that we are at a crisis point in terms of the supply of childcare, we really are. So I hear the concerns about child safety, child welfare. Obviously, that is top of mind. I also think that we need to trust providers and trust the people who are doing this work as a profession to be able to make that decision for what makes the most sense for their particular center.
Note that Mr. Martinez joined us at 1:25, and I do have one follow-up to that. Kind of recognizing all of those patterns and concerns and 25% reduction in parents struggling. Is there a reasonable expectation among parents that insurance is going to exist in that space? And is there, maybe then there's a notification requirement that goes in, this is not an insured facility, or this is an insured facility? Because I think parents do reasonably expect that the place they take their kids to is gonna be safe and have some form of kind of insurance, just kind of assumed. I wonder, and maybe that creates a stigma, I don't know, but if there's no notice, no communication, maybe there's just a communication campaign that is run kind of third party or independent or abstract to the specific operator. Anyhow, I just wonder if there is a reasonable expectation the place would be insured. I mean, it's 2025. So anyhow, it's not enough to stop me from supporting this project, but it certainly is a question. Probably we've beaten this one enough if there's no one else. So want to go ahead?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is next one. So the next couple of code changes, proposed code changes is the 4 that are listed up here: increasing capacity from 6 to 8 during the provisional year, increasing ratios for school age care, removing the minimum age of 6 weeks for enrollment in a center, and removing the requirement to have a minimum of 2 caregivers present at all times children are present. So this is the piece that is in code, and so that is highlighted there in yellow is what we are looking at changing. And so what are the benefits? So right now we are wanting to increase overall capacity from
Sorry,
6.
Kim. Ms. Silvers had a question on the previous slide with the yellow. There you go.
I was just looking at this and wondering, is there any appetite or ability to change the 19 to 36 months to 8 rather than 6?
That's a state requirement, so the municipality does not have the authority to change that.
Okay, thank you.
We can change the other 2 because we exceed what the state does.
Okay,
And so
thank you.
this is adopting it.
Perfect. Okay, so increasing overall capacity from 6 to 8 during a licensed home first year, which allows for potentially more spaces for families while providing the administrator with the option for up to 8 children. It's not a requirement to care for more children, but an option that they currently do not have. And this aligns with our state of Alaska partners. Increasing school age ratios was in place in 42 facilities who utilize the school age variance for the 24 to 25 school year. In the first year of ASD schedule changes where facilities have utilized high school students who now are not able to arrive until an hour after elementary school release, this will have flexibility with the ratios, has supported facilities and allowed for additional spaces for families to secure care for the age range. This aligns with our state of Alaska partners. Currently, we have 34 school age only centers with 9 additional all-day centers that also provide school age care. By removing the minimum age of 6 weeks, this allows centers to potentially meet more parents' needs, as not all parents have parental leave and must return back to work prior to an infant being 6 weeks of age. Spaces for age range fill quickly in homes, leaving parents with very few options. By removing the requirement to have 2 caregivers on site, this allows centers and staff, based on their business needs, knowing when a child will arrive and depart, and if it's more cost efficient to have 1 approved adult and 1 caregiver on site, rather than the requirement specifying that adults on site must be caregivers. And so really what these 4 do is it really allows for more space and allows for more of the ownership and decision-making to be placed on the entities themselves. Code change number 7 that we are looking at making is removing specific bathroom requirements that can be cost prohibitive. By removing the several specific bathroom requirements in centers, it provides for more opportunities for centers trying to open or for those wanting to remodel, as these requirements can be extremely costly. There would be no more separate adult bathrooms. An approved plan can be in place for the shared bathrooms. Approving sinks to be in the toileting area rather than requiring sinks to be in the classroom but outside the toileting area. And removing the wall height of a maximum of 42 inches for new or remodeled facilities. And again, this all aligns with our state of Alaska partners. Excuse me. And so really, again, the bathroom, when a new center opens or attempts to open a pre-existing building that previously had childcare, the new owner is required to come into compliance with this requirement if the building had not been previously met, had not met previously, as they are required, as they were grandfathered in. It is the same if an existing facility wants to make any changes to bathrooms. They must then come into compliance with this requirement, and often requires extensive and costly remodeling. Currently, if a new owner takes over, the facility does not meet the requirement, the remodel is required and also is often cost prohibitive. It is the standard that's currently in place and can be very difficult to meet. Therefore, we are wanting to remove this requirement at this time. Excuse me. Proposed change number 8 is amending language or requirements for playground inspections. Really what this does is it consolidates playground requirements and clarifies when inspections would be required by a certified playground inspector. And so section 1 up there is the new language, as the intent is to clarify when a certified playground inspector inspections would be required for initial installment or whenever changes are implemented to a playground. Current facilities are already aware of this requirement, and new facilities learn as they move through our licensing process. Sections 2 through 5 can be removed as the requirements are notated in state statute, which is 7 AAC 10.106060I, and additional provisions for entities licensed to provide childcare. So what is next for the health department in our childcare licensing? So if these proposed changes pass, licensed facilities will have more autonomy to make business and financial decisions that are tailored to the individual need and business structure, reducing costs and stress, shortening the licensing process for new applicants, and easing requirements during inspections. This also increases ratios for school-age care and centers and overall capacity for homes in the initial year, which increases opportunities for revenue, thus supporting facilities and remaining open and available to our community. Some community benefits that we see is potentially opening more childcare spaces in centers for school-age care by moving from the 1 to 10 to the 1 to 14 or 1 to 18, and potentially meeting infant needs more if younger infants can be enrolled in centers and in homes, increasing by 2 spaces in the provisional year for a maximum capacity of 6 to 8 at any one time. This also has the potentiality of also adding available overall with easier processes for new applicants to become licensed. If this does pass, the child care team will immediately broadcast the updated changes to licensed facilities and update the child care program office at the state to get the changes incorporated into our new database so our inspection reports can reflect those changes. Another thing that just I mentioned earlier was that we would like to also have round 2 of code changes, which would follow the same procedure. We would draft the changes, receive community feedback, engage with the ACE board, and then come to you all with those proposed changes. And some of those were listed earlier in the presentation that I provided. And so we would be looking at additionally doing a survey in a year to see how did these changes fare within our community, and really just trying to get a pulse on that, what that looks like 1 year after passage.
I have a question for you. So the age change, the not restricting it to older than 6 months, what was the rationale for the 6 months, to the best of your knowledge, in the first place?
It's 6 weeks.
Or weeks?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so what's the rationale? Sorry, 6 weeks.
What's the rationale of changing it?
No? What do you think the rationale was for having it in the first place?
I think at the time that was a pretty common practice. This code was adopted. It was actually created and adopted in 2004. There was a large community committee that came together and created it, Anchorage had never licensed homes until 2004. And we consolidated everything for homes and centers under one AMC 1655. And I think that at the time, 6 weeks was kind of a industry standard. We're finding that because it's so limited with young children, I mean, my first thought is, oh, that's so young. Do we really want to have to put them in care? Nope, parents don't want to have to put them in care at that age either, but it happens and a center has to wait. And and the state doesn't have a requirement on this. They're just kind of silent and they let the facilities centers make their own choices. Homes do not have this minimum age. It's only in centers, and they would have the option. They don't have to change it. They could remain at 6 weeks if they wanted to, but if they have a parent come to them, it would give them the option to say, yeah, you don't have to wait 2 more weeks. We can take him.
Thank you.
I don't know where the 6 weeks entirely came from, but I do think it was more of an industry standard in 2004.
Yeah. Any more questions? Anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it.
All right, then I'll just note for the record that we have AO 2025-70 before us, I believe on July 15th. It's an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly, amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 1655, Anchorage Child Care Licensing Code to reduce burdens on licensed child care providers by repealing several sections. So if there's nothing else, then that's the only work session of the day. Will be, the administration has requested a work session on the 9th of July relating to kind of phase 2 of the conversation of 2025-74, 74S1. And so it hasn't yet been scheduled, but it has been requested, and the clerk is working on looking at the timelines to make that happen. And there are some discussions that have been happening about what the right time of day is on that day, the 11th, to host that meeting. It's at least at this time scheduled at 1 p.m. It could go later, but not much later, because as the administration has requested an executive session, the thing may take quite some time. So I think that's all that we have by way of calendaring. We don't have any work sessions next week, right? Yeah, so next week is the 4th of July. So no, but it could have been Wednesday or Thursday. You never know. Yeah, committees are happening. I don't think any committees have been stopped, but that's a question of the chair. And so at this time, so far, okay, CEDC had already moved, and but I heard that public health and safety is planning to go, but otherwise it's a pretty quiet week next week for folks. And so the intent is to let people get out and have a holiday as well. Some of the staff will be released early on is Thursday before the 4th. And so for that, then you're gonna get a few days away from us all. So please enjoy it. All right, thank you. We'll be adjourned. Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to thank the health department for being so responsive to the childcare industry. And then I think there are a lot of providers who have been wanting these changes for a long time. So I just wanted to say thank you for your hard work and putting all of this together. I think the industry is going to be really pleased. So thank you.